I never imagined that after 26 years of marriage, my life would collapse in the space of a single conversation. My name is Marianne Carter. I'm 52 years old, and for most of my adult life, I thought I had built something solid, something unshakable with the man I married. His name, when we met, I was 26, full of dreams and stubborn optimism. I believed in love, in loyalty, in the promise that if you poured your whole heart into someone, they would never betray it. I left my career behind to raise our daughter, Lydia. I managed the home, paid bills when Thomas's business hit rough patches, and even nursed his father through 2 long years of illness until he passed away. I sacrificed without hesitation because I thought we were a team. But one evening, Thomas sat across from me at the very table where we had shared thousands of meals, and with the coldness I'd never seen before, he said the words that ripped my world apart. "I think we've grown apart. I want a divorce." I remember staring at him, waiting for him to take it back, waiting for the smirk, the nervous laugh, anything to suggest he wasn't serious. No apology, banality. I asked him, "Is there someone else?" He looked away, which told me the truth long before his lips confirmed it. Yes, there was someone, a woman named Vanessa, a co-worker, 30 years old, half my age. He didn't even flinch when he said her name, like it was normal, like I should accept it, pack my things, and vanish. At first, I thought the pain of betrayal was the worst part, but I was wrong, because the real humiliation came later, when I discovered that Thomas had not only married Vanessa within months, but had also moved her into our home. The home where I had raised our daughter. The home where I'd planted the garden, painted the walls, poured my sweat and tears into every corner. The home where I once believed my love story was written. Now, another woman was sleeping in my bed, using my kitchen, replacing family photos with her own. It felt like I had been erased, as though 26 years of devotion had meant nothing. One morning, a pink envelope arrived in the mail. The handwriting was neat, feminine. Inside, a letter from Vanessa herself. "Dear Marianne, I hope you understand this transition is difficult for all of us. I'd appreciate if you could collect the rest of your belongings soon so Thomas and I can settle fully into our new life together. With respect." With respect. Those words burned. She was asking me to come remove the last fragments of my life from the home I had built, as though I were some tenant overstaying my welcome. Crumpled the letter in my hands, trembling with rage and heartbreak. That was the moment I realized Thomas hadn't just left me, he had replaced me, and Vanessa wanted me gone. For days, I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I walked through my small rented apartment in circles, whispering to myself, how could he do this? How could she do this? My daughter Lydia tried to comfort me, but even she seemed caught in the middle. She didn't want to take sides, didn't want to make her father angry. I understood, but the silence cut deeper than she knew. At night, I sat alone with a single lamp on, staring at old photo albums. Thomas holding Lydia as a newborn. Our first Christmas together. Vacations we saved years for. Memories that once made me smile now felt poisoned. And then came the final straw. A neighbor called me, whispering in pity, "Marianne, I saw them in your driveway today. Vanessa was planting flowers in the garden, the one you built." I felt my chest tighten, anger swelling so hot it made me dizzy. That was my sanctuary, my roses, my lilies, the soil I had tilled with my bare hands. She was rooting herself into my life, one flower at a time. That night, I realized something. Crying wouldn't save me. Begging wouldn't change anything. And silence would only give them the victory they wanted. If I wanted to reclaim my dignity, I needed to act. So I picked up the phone and dialed the only person I trusted to give me real advice, Sandra, my oldest friend since childhood, who also happened to be a lawyer. When she answered, I could barely get the words out through tears. "Sandra, he moved her into the house. Into my house." Sandra's voice was calm, steady, like a lifeline. "Marianne, listen to me carefully. Is your name still on the deed?" The question stunned me. I wiped my face, grabbed the old folder from my drawer, and flipped through papers until I found the deed. And there it was. My name. Still there. I whispered into the phone. "Yes, it's still mine." Sandra's voice hardened. "Then they've made the biggest mistake of their lives, because he can't just move her in. That house isn't his alone. It's yours too. And if he thought you'd roll over quietly, he has no idea what's coming." For the first time in months, I felt something other than despair. I felt power, a spark, a chance to fight back. I sat upright, wiped my tears, and whispered to myself, "Thomas, Vanessa, you wanted me erased, but you've forgotten. I'm still here, and I'm not going anywhere."
The day after my call with Sandra, I drove back to the house I once called home. It felt surreal pulling into that familiar driveway and seeing a car I didn't recognize, a sleek black SUV parked where my old minivan used to be. The garden I poured my soul into was dotted with fresh plants I never bought. My wind chimes were gone. Even the welcome mat had been replaced. It was as if my existence had been scrubbed away. I took a deep breath and rang the bell. Vanessa answered the door, her smile sharp and polished, like she'd been rehearsing for this moment. "Marianne," she said sweetly, "I wasn't sure when you'd come by." I stepped inside, and my chest tightened at the sight of new curtains, new furniture, even a faint trace of perfume that didn't belong to me. It no longer smelled like home. As I walked toward the staircase, Vanessa's heels clicked behind me. She said lightly, "I've set aside the rest of your things in boxes. Thomas thought it would be easier this way." Easier. For them. In the living room, I noticed something that nearly made me collapse. Our family portrait, the one taken on Lydia's 16th birthday, was gone. In its place was a framed photo of Thomas and Vanessa on a beach, laughing with cocktails in their hands. My stomach twisted. It wasn't just betrayal, it was erasure. When I bent to pick up one of the boxes, Vanessa crossed her arms and said, "You know, Marianne, it's better to let go. Holding on only makes it harder. You'll find someone new eventually." I froze, then slowly turned to face her. Her eyes sparkled with triumph, as though stealing my husband and my home wasn't enough. She needed me to admit defeat. For a moment, I wanted to scream, to break something, to let the anger consume me. But instead, I set the box down and smiled faintly. "Vanessa," I said softly, "I don't need to find someone new. I just need to remember who I was before Thomas. And trust me, she's stronger than you realize." Her smile faltered just slightly. I walked out of that house with my head high, and though my heart was still broken, my mind was clearer than it had been in months. That night, Sandra came over to my apartment with a thick folder of documents. She placed it on the table and said, "Here's what we're going to do. We're filing for a partition action. That house is still half yours, Marianne, which means one of two things. Either Thomas buys you out, or the court forces the house to be sold and you take your share in cash." I stared at her, stunned. "Wait, you mean I can force them out?" Sandra nodded firmly. "Yes. He thinks moving her in means you're powerless, but legally she has no standing. She's just a guest in a home you still own." For the first time since the divorce, a laugh escaped my lips, short, bitter, but real. "Oh, Sandra," I said, "you don't know how badly I needed to hear that." Next morning, we filed the papers. I imagined Thomas's face when he opened that envelope, realizing his little fairy tale with Vanessa was about to cost him more than he ever planned. And oh, did it. Thomas called me that evening, his voice tight with anger. "Marianne, what the hell is this? You're forcing me to sell the house? Do you realize what you're doing?" I held the phone steady, my tone calm. "I'm doing what's legally mine to do. You wanted her in the house, Thomas. Now you both can deal with the consequences." There was silence on the other end, then a low growl of frustration. "You're bitter. That's all this is. You're punishing me because I found happiness." I almost laughed. "Happiness? You call moving your mistress into my home happiness? No, Thomas. This isn't punishment. This is balance. You took my trust and broke it. You took my house and stained it. Now I'm just taking back what's mine." I hung up the phone before he could answer. And for the first time in months, I felt in control. Over the next few weeks, Vanessa's perfect little world began to crack. The moment she realized the house was at risk, her sweet demeanor turned sharp. One afternoon, as I arrived with Sandra to inspect the property for valuation, Vanessa stormed out onto the porch. "This is harassment!" she shouted. "You're just jealous because Thomas chose you over me." Sandra calmly flashed the court order. "Actually, this is legal procedure. Marianne still owns half this property, and she has every right to enforce her claim." Vanessa's face turned crimson. She turned to me and hissed, "You're pathetic. You couldn't keep your husband, and now you're trying to ruin his life." I stepped closer, my voice steady. "No, Vanessa. I'm not ruining his life. He did that all on his own when he chose lies over loyalty. I'm just collecting what I'm owed." Her jaw tightened, and for once, she had no clever response. That night, I sat by my window with a cup of tea, and for the first time, I didn't cry. I didn't ache for what I'd lost. I felt strong. I realized something important. All those years of sacrifice had convinced me I needed Thomas to survive. But in reality, it was the other way around. He needed me. Without me, he was reckless. Without me, he was exposed. And now, without me, he was about to lose the one thing he thought he'd taken forever: our home. And deep down, I knew. This was only the beginning.
The day of the court hearing arrived. I sat in the wooden bench of the small county courtroom, hands folded tightly in my lap. Across the room, Thomas and Vanessa sat side by side. He looked pale and tense, while she fidgeted with her phone, scrolling as if none of this mattered. But when the judge spoke, the weight of reality finally began to sink in. "Based on the evidence," he said, adjusting his glasses, "this property remains jointly owned by Mrs. Marianne Carter and Mr. Thomas Carter. Unless an agreement is reached, the property must be sold and proceeds divided equally." The words echoed like thunder in that silent room. Thomas's face flushed red. Vanessa blinked rapidly as though she hadn't prepared for this possibility. I sat still, calm, a faint smile tugging at the corner of my lips. Afterward, in the hallway, Thomas caught up with me. His voice was low, almost a growl. "Do you realize what you've done? This house was supposed to be our fresh start. You've destroyed it." I turned to face him, steady as a rock. "No, Thomas, you destroyed it the day you moved her in. I'm just taking back what's mine." Vanessa stepped forward, her heels clicking against the tile. "You're pathetic, Marianne. Do you really want to drag us down just because you're bitter? Let it go." I leaned in slightly, my voice sharp but calm. "Bitter women cry in silence. Strong women use the law. Learn the difference." Her lips parted in shock, but I walked away before she could respond. The weeks that followed were delicious in a quiet way. Realtors came and went. Strangers walked through the house, opening closets, running fingers along counters, imagining themselves in my home. Every time I knew it drove Vanessa insane. Neighbors began whispering. The perfect couple that Thomas flaunted suddenly wasn't so perfect anymore. On social media, Vanessa's posts shifted. The once constant stream of selfies and blessed life captions turned into vague complaints about toxic energy and people trying to tear us down. I didn't comment. I didn't argue. I simply let their fantasy crumble under the weight of reality. One evening, I received a voicemail from Thomas. His voice was tired, strained. "Marianne, please, can we work something out?" Vanessa's stressed. The constant showings, the bills piling up. This isn't what I wanted. For a moment, I almost felt pity. Almost. But then I remembered the letter on pink stationery, the flowers planted in my garden, the laughter in the house I built, and my heart hardened again. I called him back, my voice calm, almost gentle. "Thomas, what you wanted stopped mattering the day you chose her over me. Actions have consequences. You made your bed, now lie in it." Didn't call again. As the house lingered on the market, cracks in their relationship deepened. A neighbor later told me she heard shouting late at night, Vanessa accusing Thomas of being careless, Thomas accusing Vanessa of being ungrateful. The glossy, romantic picture they painted for the world was tearing at the seams. When the realtor finally secured a buyer, a young couple eager to start their own family, I felt a strange peace. The home that had been poisoned by betrayal would no longer belong to any of us. It would have a fresh start, untainted by lies. On the day of closing, I signed my name on the dotted line with steady hands. My portion, nearly $400,000. As I walked out of the office, the check safe in my purse, I felt lighter than I had in years. But of course, Thomas wasn't done. That very evening, he showed up at my apartment. Not in anger this time, but desperation. "Marianne," he pleaded, standing in my doorway, "I made a mistake. Vanessa, she's not who I thought she was. She's talking about leaving me, the bills, the pressure. It's too much. Please, we can work something out. Maybe we can start fresh." For a moment, I studied him. This man I once loved. This man I gave my youth, my dreams, my loyalty to. And now here he was, broken, abandoned, standing at my door as though I could save him. I shook my head slowly. "No, Thomas, you didn't just break my heart. You broke my trust. And once trust is gone, nothing can fix it." His eyes glistened, and for a brief second I saw the man I once married. But then I remembered Vanessa's smug smile, the way he tossed me aside like I was disposable, the nights I cried alone wondering how I'd survive, and my heart hardened again. I said softly, "You bet against me, and you lost. I'm not here to rescue you. I'm here to live my life without you." I closed the door before he could answer. On the other side, I heard a heavy sigh, then footsteps fading away. I leaned against the door, tears slipping down my cheeks, not of sorrow, but of release. For the first time in decades, I wasn't bound by him anymore. I was free.
In the weeks after the house was sold, a silence settled over my life. Not the hollow silence of loneliness, but the calm silence of peace. For the first time in years, I woke up without the weight of betrayal crushing my chest. No texts from Thomas, no smug letters from Vanessa, no memories of my home being used against me. Just me, my small condo, and the quiet hum of freedom. I used part of my settlement to renovate my new place exactly the way I wanted. Soft blue walls, shelves lined with books I never had time to read before, a kitchen filled with plants, sunlight streaming through the windows. Every corner whispered one thing: this is mine. But freedom didn't mean forgetting. Every so often news of Thomas would reach me. Neighbors mentioned he was struggling. Vanessa had left him not long after the house sold. She couldn't handle the financial stress, the legal mess, the cracks in their fantasy. One morning, I even saw him at the grocery store. He looked thinner, older, weighed down by years he hadn't yet lived. He tried to smile at me, but his eyes carried regret so heavy it nearly buckled his frame. I nodded politely and walked away. because pity was no longer mine to give. Instead, I poured my energy into something new. Sandra encouraged me to join a local women's support group. At first, I resisted. I didn't want to sit in a circle, sharing my pain with strangers. But when I finally went, I realized how powerful it was. There were women like me, some betrayed, some abandoned, some silenced for years. And as I spoke, sharing how I thought my life had ended when Thomas left me, how I believed I was nothing without him, and how I reclaimed my power, I saw heads nodding, tears falling, eyes lighting up with recognition. I wasn't just telling my story. I was giving them permission to believe in themselves again. One evening after speaking at the group, a young woman approached me. She whispered, "I'm going through the same thing. My husband left me for someone else, and I feel like I can't breathe. But listening to you, I think maybe I'll survive this." I held her hand, squeezing gently. I told her, "You won't just survive. You'll rise, stronger than before." In that moment, I realized something. Thomas thought he had ended my life story, but really, he had only ended a chapter. The rest was still unwritten, and I held the pen. Months passed. I started volunteering more, speaking at community events, sharing not just my pain, but my victory. The settlement money gave me stability, but it was courage that gave me purpose. I stopped introducing myself as Thomas's ex-wife. I became Mary Ann Carter, independent, whole, alive. Sometimes, late at night, I'd sit by my window with a cup of tea. Staring at the city lights, I'd think of Thomas, alone, bitter, clinging to the ashes of what he destroyed. And I'd think of Vanessa, who believed she had won, only to discover she'd gambled on a sinking ship. Then I'd smile, not out of cruelty, but out of clarity, because they taught me something invaluable. Never give someone the power to erase you. Never let betrayal define you. And never forget, sometimes the greatest revenge is living well. So here I am, at 52 years old, standing taller than I ever have. Thomas lost his house. Vanessa lost her illusion. But me gained myself. And if you're listening right now, if you've ever been broken, discarded, or betrayed, remember this: you are not what someone else threw away. You are the fire they never saw coming. And when you choose yourself, you don't just survive, you thrive. That's my story. The story of how my husband divorced me, moved his new wife into my house, and thought he'd destroyed me. But in the end, I cashed out, left them both homeless, and walked away free. My name is Mary Ann Carter, and I'm not bitter. I'm not broken. I'm finally